Please, let's hear from him.
I think the fundamental issues that we're supposed to be addressing in this country, which is our budget, right, is where it is the major catastrophe we face. You cannot run an expense budget and expect to prosper. And I beg to differ, right, with the minister. No matter what we do, poverty will continue to increase. Why? Did we expand between 2000 and 2010? Yes, we did. We privatized a lot of agencies. Did we not? The telecoms came in. Go and calculate the average marginal productivity. You'll find out that between 2005 and 2010 was when we had the highest growth. But yet, it was that same period, right, that we added majorly to poverty.
Mr. Bismarck-Rouhani.
Yeah, I have a comment. First of all, when you have an economic downturn, what lessons did you learn from it? And if you don't learn from the lessons of history, then you are bound to repeat it. The question was that I agree with, that the trend is important. But if 6 months earlier we had adopted a market-based forex system, would we have gone down to 520? By the time we moved back to a market-based system, we put in less money, confidence was restored, and the currency was stable. And I'm saying that the cost of that mistake and the lessons, rather than trying to paper over it, is a real issue. And that's the core. So that if we went back, the momentum of change, if we had done that 6 months earlier, we would have been out of this recession much earlier, one, and the trajectory the delta would have been much faster. That's its position.
You see, the issue is we had been growing, and the point that Rowan is making is a very important point. Growth is not a sufficient condition for poverty reduction, but it is a necessary condition, which therefore means that once we suffered recession, we got ourselves into what we call the double whammy, right? Double jeopardy. So here we are now having to climb back onto the trajectory of growth, when what should have been happening was for us to strengthen growth and increase growth. So growth should have gone from an average of 5.7 annually to above 7 in order to guarantee that we would at least double our GDP over a period of, say, 7 years. We did not achieve that. We declined in growth. So now our macroeconomic stability that was guaranteed reasonably unraveled. Look at what happened with inflation. We are now celebrating that inflation is coming down, when, as a matter of fact, if we had done a combination of the right monetary policy, the right fiscal policy, and focused on cost of governance, which this same government campaigned on, we would have a different package of outcome during the period of that decline.
Mr. Okuchikunalama, do you agree that the policies made were perhaps not apt?
I think the first thing to say is that we can spend a lot of time debating what if you had done X or if you had done Y. The most important lessons in life are the following. First, if you're doing something that is working, do more of it. If you're doing something that is not working, learn from it. That's why I said it's fundamental, and then you move on. There is no question that where we are today, lessons have been learned. There's a formula that is working. And it's important to understand that it's not we versus, it's not the government versus the rest. This country is for all of us to build. So those things that are working for us as a country, let's pull together and ratchet up what we're doing there and get the results. So if you look at basically the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which Dr. Dikbolu was talking about, the formula seems to be working. The plan is working. The data is supporting it. And it's basically solving the problems that were mentioned there. There were 3 problems that were mentioned there, which I want to quickly talk about. Inclusive growth. The gentleman was saying that the growth was not inclusive, meaning it didn't create jobs. That was the problem that we were trying to solve. And the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan will solve that, because it's moving growth away from the narrow sort of oil base alone to diversify the growth through industrialization, through this food and agriculture, food security and agriculture, and having energy sufficiency and transport infrastructure. If you do that, the growth will be inclusive. it will take the people with it, as opposed to growth based on commodity cycles.
Based on that vision, the ERGP project, how much is the perennial budget delay going to affect it?
Well, my view is that the budget delay is something that needs to be solved as part of the political process. But beyond the budget delay, like has been said, we need to implement our plan. This plan around, investing in infrastructure, investing in our people, and basically diversifying the economy away from a mono base, from an oil base. That's what we're doing, and that plan is working. All hands need to get on deck, rather than arguing on theories that aren't really...
Reforms are not. I don't think your structural reforms are convincing enough. So,
but structural reforms are trade and industry. I mean, what is structural reform? That's what it is.
We've talked about growth, right? And we talked about stable exchange, we talked about reserves. But what the underlying thing is that unemployment and underemployment has increased in all the 3 quarters that we had positive growth. We've had higher unemployment and higher unemployment. Therefore, the sectors that are growing are not the ones that employ people. The sectors there's what you call coincidental growth. That is, happens because it happens, right? So we now have to shift, like what Okay is saying, that let's shift emphasis. Let's invest in those areas where there's labor-intensive activity, where people can create jobs, right? Because the unemployed man becomes a dysfunctional member of society who disrupts, who kidnaps, and that destroys everything. Right? And if you look at the growth numbers that came out, the last growth numbers, 14% growth in the oil sector, then insurance, and then some other areas where people are not employed. The sectors that employ people, which are interest rate sensitive, are the ones that actually slowed and contracted. Therefore, I submit that if you don't bring down interest rates, right? You've had 22 months of no change in interest rate formula. If you don't bring down the interest rates to stimulate growth and increase economic activity, then all of these things are going to be
Professor
just
Somi.
numbers.
Go further, taking it from where Bismarck has traveled to. We've got to identify really what sectors we want to be those growth leaders. Those sectors that are creating employment, creating possibilities of more sustained growth based on our factor endowments. I will subscribe to an industrial policy that is not broad, but takes on specific areas that we really want to grow and discriminate to make those, take our latent comparative advantage to play. And so we can get people employed. If politicians are held to account literally every day on people employed, then we'll get different kinds of results. The problem is that the pressure isn't there on politicians to perform according to what's best for the people on the streets. And so you get an economy that's creating private jet owners, that's not creating jobs. This is what we need to engage.
Doctor, would you like to? Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. So I think we're all converging on the fact that the contents of the economic recovery and growth plan are headed in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And I want to start with agriculture. I was talking to a foreigner yesterday from a successful agricultural country. He said, you know what you have in Nigeria? You have a rice revolution, only you don't know it. And just to take the figures alone, you've doubled the amount of paddy production of rice. Our milling capacity has moved from about 2.5 million metric tons to 4.5 million metric tons. You've had massive private sector investment in rice milling, the Wakot rice milling in Kebbi. The Dangote is putting up 1 million metric tons across the board in all his milling factories. The Lagos state government is putting up a milling factory, 130,000 metric tons a year. So the point I'm trying to make is that even in agriculture, the investment is taking place, the jobs are taking place. The Anchor Borrowers Program has reached over 200,000 farmers, and they've been able to scale up rice production. I'm just using rice as an example of one of the sectors where you can create jobs, you can change the trajectory of the economy from depending on oil alone to generating agriculture.
Okay,
but
if I may,
the first part of agriculture.
We'll come back to that. We need to take a break now. We need to take a break and we'll come back still talking about issues relating to the economy. Do join us again.